Okay, here's going to be some quick examples of perspective drawings. I'm going to do a 1, 2, and 3-point perspective of these shapes. One that's just a cube and one is that's kind of an L-shaped prism. Okay, with a 1-point perspective, you start with an orthographic view and then you give yourself a vanishing point. I'm going to call it VP1 and I'll put above here that it's for depth. Basically all my depth lines, anything that's showing depth, is going to angle towards that. Instead of using parallel lines, that's my guide in terms of what direction to draw them. At some point I set the depth with an actual edge, and from there I finish my verticals, my height lines with just being vertical and parallel to the heights here. And when that intersects into this depth, that shows me the back corner there. And then again I stay parallel for widths coming across the front, do my best. And that shows me where the depth is for that one. So there's a 1-point perspective. The depth edges are all slanting in. Just to do a second one. Okay, there's my vanishing point. Again, these are for depth edges, and I'm going to draw. These would be very light with a pencil. I'm making sure that you can see them on the video. Okay, and now I've got to actually control where's my depth. So I'm just going to draw one, and that really determines where everything else goes, because from here I'm going to stay parallel to that. Where that intersects shows me that corner. I'm going to stay parallel to this for the back width. That wasn't very vertical, but I wanted to stay parallel to that from here and then horizontal. Here you go. That's a 1-point perspective. Okay, using one vanishing point, and the vanishing point that we're using is guiding our depth edges. Okay, a 2-point perspective, I'm going to do the same two shapes, but this time I need a vanishing point for the width. So I'm going to have a vanishing point here, and this one is going to be to guide my width edges. So instead of just drawing the front face orthographically, I'm not going to draw my widths until I start drawing these construction lines towards that vanishing point. Again, those would be extremely faint and light with a pencil. And then I'm going to set my width. So this here was a height, that was a width. Once I set that, now my heights are vertical, runs into that. Here's my width on the top. So notice the widths are now tapering in. Now from here, it's like doing the 1-point perspective with a second vanishing point. It's a 2-point perspective, so that's vanishing point 1, this is vanishing point 2, and this is now going to be used for my depths. I use that. So it's construction lines again to guide the angles of my depths. I'll set the depth somewhere. Okay, from there, heights are vertical and parallel to each other. When I run into that next construction line, I find that next corner. Here's a depth. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. I couldn't draw this next construction line that I need, but I'm going to cross the back side on the top here, and that is a width. And I don't just draw it parallel to this. All of my widths were angled over here. So now I need a construction line that's pointing back here. And where those two construction lines cross, that actually shows me where those two edges should go. So there's a 2-point perspective, relatively, trying to be a prism, a rectangular prism or cube. Okay, we'll try again with that L shape. So on the front, I'm going to start with that smaller part of that L on the bottom. I'm going to give myself a vanishing point out here. Red. And I need to kind of set the width of that one block at the bottom of the L. And then I'm going to determine how high I wanted that L to be. So I'm just doing this by eye, but I'll say that sounds good. And then I got to determine the width on the bottom. I think be about to here. Okay. And now another construction line to guide that width. Height's going to be vertical. This is the width here. All right, so now that I've got the front face, all my width edges are pointing to that vanishing point. Then I can get my second vanishing point, and this one will be for depth. Set the depth somewhere, and then follow around. Heights are vertical or parallel, widths are not. Every time I get to another width, what do I need to do? I need to give myself a construction line. I need to figure out what is that angle to get back there. Here's another width. There's a 2-point perspective. Last up, let's try a 3-point. Three-point perspective starts like the 2-point. I'll just start with an edge. I'm going to give myself a couple vanishing points. This one's going to be for width. And I'm going to draw my front face, part of it. I'll set the width here. Okay, now this is where it's different. I need a 3rd point. My heights are also going to be guided by a vanishing point. So if I want the width of this bottom to end right here, I don't draw the height parallel to this. Now the height has to angle and aim for that vanishing point. Okay, so it looks like that. Now I'm ready to kind of extrude the depth. Okay, I'm going to figure out what depth I want to create here on the bottom. Say I want it to here. And again, I stop. I don't draw the height until I come back and use a construction line. Now, anytime I need height, I've got to angle it towards that 3rd vanishing point. So that shows my height there. All right, I can see this, but I can't see how far back to go. This here is a width, and it needs to angle towards that vanishing point. So I need one more construction line. I could obviously take a little more time with a ruler and get this better, but I'm trying to just make a quick video. Okay, and that is a 3-point perspective. Sometimes people call the 3-point perspective a bird's eye view. Or depending on where the vanishing points are, if you move them around, it's kind of a fun experiment to play with where you put them and how that changes things. If you put the 3rd vanishing point on the top instead of the bottom and had the heights angle up, you might get what's called a worm's eye view. So instead of this being like we're up in the drone looking down on a, if you imagine this as a building, okay, and we're looking down on it. Imagine if we were down right on this eye level to the sidewalk and looking up. So you can play around with that if you want. It's kind of neat. All right, let's try one more though. Let's do that L shape again. Okay, I need a height here, right? So this, I need a line that goes through that to guide this. And then I also need a construction line. I'm going to have a height here. Let's see here. Okay, that's a width, so I needed that to angle over here. So there's the front face. Now I'm ready to extrude, kind of to show depth. I get my last vanishing point for depth. There's my depth angle there. My height, again, not vertical. I need to use my vanishing points to guide. Okay, here coming across the back is a width, so I need to angle this way. It's going to be about like that, kind of pointing myself that way. Height, I need to angle this way. Okay, eyeballing that. And then here's a width is angled back this way. And then I can see the top. Okay, so there is a 3-point perspective. Good luck trying those.